Good day and welcome to this recorded lesson. So for this session, we'll be discussing about C Sharp data types. So in C Sharp, there are a lot of data types that you can use, and depending on their purpose, so you can fully utilize it and take advantage. So data types are basically a container of values, and these data types are consist of numbers, strings, and booleans, and also objects. So one of those data types from C Sharp is called sbyte. So sbyte basically signed byte. So signed byte has a default value of 0, and it ranges between negative 128 to positive 127. So if you're going to use small numbers, basically expecting between negative 28 to 127, then the short byte, sorry, the sign byte should be this. So as you can see here, the maximum number is 127. That is because it is between 128, 0 to 127. So again, sign byte is used if we're going to be expecting values between negative 128 to 127. And the other one is byte. So byte is just counterpart of the signed byte. So take note the S. So meaning there is a sign, meaning that you're expecting negative values to positive values, while byte only expect positive values. So a byte can range up to 0 to 255. Let's say. So since it doesn't have a negative value, so all of those values are transferred to the positive value. That's why the positive values are much higher than the positive value of the sign byte. So again, it depends on your requirements on how you need a certain variable to hold a certain value. So if you're expecting values between 0 to 255, then a byte is pretty much an ideal data type for your variable. So in C Sharp, it's usually same as in Java or in C++ or C. First, you have to declare the data type and then the identifier or the name of your variable, and you can usually initialize it with a uh, default or a starting value. So in our case, I given a 0 as a default or starting value. Next, if you are expecting a bit of a higher value um, than 255 or 127 number, then you must or you may use short. Short is a data type that can hold numbers between negative 32,768 to 32,767. So short data type can hold between these values. So let's say t is equals to 0. So what happens if we are going to assign a value that is not between the minimum or maximum? So let's try that. So take note, I only added a comma to visually represent or a clear representation of the value. So let's say 32,767. So that's the maximum value it can hold. What if you're going to add 1? There we go. Now it gives us an error. So if you're going to hover your cursor, then you'll see like constant value of 32678 cannot be converted to short. So meaning it's a much higher value where our short data type cannot hold. So if this is the case, then, and if you're only expecting positive values, then you can use ushort or unsigned short. And unsigned short ranges between 0 to 65,535. So this is the value that you can to be expecting from the unsigned short. So let's just fix this and assign the maximum value. Let's say 65,535. Again, if you're going to assign a much higher value, let's add 1, then you'll receive another error. So it says so the constant value, so that's 65,536, cannot be converted to unsigned short. So it's pretty much obvious that it's not between the minimum and maximum value. So there are a lot of data types, like for example the int or integer, the unsigned or uint or unsigned int, the long, unsigned long, the float, double, decimal, bool, char, object, and string. So these are basically the data types that are available in C#. And in integer, it ranges from negative. So let me just put it here. Negative. How do you read this? So it's 2,147,483,648. And of course, the maximum value is the positive value minus less than 1 of the minimum value. So that's the maximum range of the integer. And in the unsigned, so it ranges between 0 to that's 4,294,967,000 295. So it's much higher than the integer, since there is no signed value. That's why it's much higher. And long. So again, depending on your requirements or the expecting values, it's pretty much ideal to choose these data types, since later on, if you develop systems, most especially enterprise or big or huge systems, data types are very much considered, since it like for example, if you're just gonna ask for a if you're gonna ask the user between numbers from 1 to 10, that it's preferably you're going to need a signed byte for that, rather than using an integer, because later on uh, these memory requirements will multiply depending on your system. So if your system uh, is what I mean is your system may require a higher requirements when it in terms to the memory, since you are using unused or improperly using data types. So again, take note about that, to maybe not now, right? So since you're just using pretty much small types of system or small systems, then these things are not yet considered. But again, but might as well put it in your mind that uh, later on you'll be developing a much higher system. So I guess um, it's a good programming practice to consider these situations. Now for the long. So how many thou thousands are these? So 100. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7, that's about quintillion. So we might just say that the long ranges from negative 9 quintillion, around negative 9 quintillion, to positive 9 quintillion. So if you are processing higher numbers, especially um, if you're developing a mathematically type, or I mean your if your system is involving about maths or scientific calculations, then and you're expecting a much higher numbers, then a long is probably the best data type for that. And we have here the unsigned long or year long. So it ranges from 0. So unsigned, again, it's only positive numbers, no negative numbers. So since there's no negative value, then we will expect that it will be double. All right, so the maximum or minimum, or the minimum number value for the unsigned long is between 0, and the maximum number is around 7. So I mean 7, that's 7 commas. I mean that's 7 trees from what I can see. So that's around 18 quintillion. So that's the maximum numbers you can hold, or maximum value. While in the float, it's float, double, and decimals are numbers with decimal values, as what it says here. So you're in the float, you can expect between so these numbers are pretty much unimaginable. So it's negative positive 1.5 times 10 raised to the negative 48, negative 48 power. That's what I can remember. So that's pretty much huge. Let me try to check on that number. Okay. Check on that. Okay, so basically the negative 45th 45, that's the number of um, numbers times to the 1.5, so could be, so this one, then 45. So I think you get the representation here. So that's these numbers are multiplied, I mean, oh yes, but I are repeated 45 times. I think that's how it visually represented. And of course the maximum value is to this one, so meaning 3.4, and then added by the sorry uh, like this, so times 10 to the negative 45th times 10 to the 38th power. I think we can't do exponents here. I mean, I think we could do this. Yeah, right, a caret like one. So that's how we represent it. We use a caret to express the exponential power or exponential value. So meaning 3.4, then digits, I mean numbers added by numbers 38 times. So that's that's how we I mean calculate or represent the actual value of those the exponential value. I think you might as well just Google this, so it won't so I might be wrong here. I might have forgotten the my algebra, or where branches of these or what branches of these mathematics have. Anyway, you might want just gonna check on that, and let me just type this one so that you won't have so these numbers are taken from the spreadsheets that I have. I mean to the I mean to the copies that I have created here. So I'm just gonna send it in the to you later on. All right. So that one, this one, there. So these numbers are unimaginable again, and these number can be used later if you're involving mathematical equation or holding like for example a value for the numbers of the grains in the beach. So maybe you could do this these decimal these data types. And of course we have here the bool, which is only false true value. So basically 1 or 0. And char is just a representation of one character. and the default value for this is this one, 2. Let me hold this. Unicode. So basically this character is a null value, so it's represented by null to the so it says here it's a replacement character. It used to replace an incoming character whose value is unknown or unrepresentable in Unicode compared to use of I think that's it. No, so if there is an uncertain value or unknown value, then this character is being replaced or represented. So you might as well check the Unicode for these. Let me, maybe I'll just gonna grab it and put the link of this page that I'm seeing. Let me maybe get an example. All right. So this one, like for example, so this one is a representation of comma. So if we're going to add a comma and assign it to a char data type, then you will assign this value. So that's a comma. Anyway, we can't dive into each of the characters in Unicode. So I'm just gonna add a link here in the documents so that you can check that later on. All right, then next are objects. So these objects has a default value of null, and objects are basically a reference to all of our classes. So maybe later on we'll create a class and then assign it into an object. So it doesn't have a maximum or a minimum value since it's a reference to a class. So if we're going to create like for example, so class person, then an object is, we can create an object and make a reference to this class. So that's why it doesn't have a minimum and maximum value. And of course the string. So again, and also it doesn't have a minimum or maximum value, since as far as I know it, as long as it's in wrap between the double quote, then it doesn't have, so that's the it doesn't have that limit. All right, so that's how our um, data types in C sharps. So let me know if you have other questions. um, I think that's pretty much it. You assigning or assigning into a variable, then it's usually the same as the other examples I have displayed or shown. All right, so maybe we can just see you in another video. So thank you for watching.